Hey guys, welcome to the first episode in spring. Today I'm going to be showing you how I use 3D scanning and 3D printing in my work and taking you from the start to sort of a finish of the work. I'll be showing you a lot more of what it is I do with 3D printing and 3D fabrication. So I want to do an update about the 3D printing piece that I've been working on for a while. I'm going to give the backstory just to explain the context of where it comes from. So a couple of months ago I did a demonstration at a festival called Triangle Festival. I made 3 triangles while I was there. Here are some photos of the demo. And that resulted in this piece. After it was finished, a friend of mine saw it, really liked it and wanted a variant of it. So something that was slightly smaller. And then I explained to him about this project that I was working on with 3D printing and how it could actually replicate the surface and really push the processes of what I'm doing now. He went for it, and basically since then I've been working on this project to realise this 3D printed assisted variant of my artwork. So it was just a perfect opportunity to kind of develop and try out new methods to really push myself and develop a new way of working. You've got the scanning process, the editing process, the frame making process, attaching the printed surfaces to the frame, interweaving, unifying the surfaces together, and then also using the traditional materials that I use in my work. So putting some string, maybe some wire to give it some sort of structure and link it all together before I apply the final paint layer. So today we're going to be going through the scanning, the printing, the rendering, the editing, how I make it, how I do this, how I do that. So in order to print, you first need to have a digital rendering. In order to get to digital rendering, I choose to scan it rather than model it. Right now I'm using a completely different technique where I actually scan a finished piece of work and then I rework it slightly digitally to make it printable. So the first process is getting this digital scan. Now the scanner that I've got isn't a high-end one, it isn't a really expensive scanner. Some scanners can cost $120,000, $80,000, euro, pound, where mine is more along the 100 or 200 mark. The limitations of this scanner are that it can only scan matte surfaces. So I work with a high gloss finish, so when you try and scan something like this, it just doesn't detect it. Basically the scanner projects a infrared like mesh onto the surface of the object you want to scan, and then there's another sensor that detects that mesh in a different, I don't know the specifics of how it works, but generally that's how it works. The issue is the pieces that I want to scan are shiny and they need to be matte. So first off I need to apply a layer of white emulsion just to make them matte again, and then I'm going to go about scanning it. So first the painting. So now the pieces are painted, I intend to scan them. In the studio I always invite people around to see it if they express any interest, and then when they're there I always encourage people to have a go at kind of working on what I'm working on. I don't think it's every day that people get to visit an artist studio and kind of see what they do, or necessarily, you know, as an adult actually produce some artwork. So for them to come and have a play per se is quite important for me. Long story short, a friend visited and he had a go at scanning. So you're going to see him scanning the work instead of me. Here he is. Oh. This is how meticulous you have to be. So now I've got a scan of the work. The rough scan looks like this. You then have to clean that up and basically make it so it's printable. So first off, it looks printable. You know, it looks fine on the image when you first check it out. But when you go in, not microscopically, but when you zoom in further than your eye can see, there are, let's call it pixels missing. It's actually made up of a mesh of triangles, I said that earlier, but there are some triangles missing, and basically if you just take that file and try and print it straight away, the printer can't interpret because there are bits missing in it. So even though on the image it doesn't seem like that, in reality there is information missing in the file in order to print it properly. So first off, you have to do things like solidify it. So make the inside an actual solid. Right now it's scanned and it's a hollow. You have to have the mesh as a sealed finished piece, and you have to make a flat back so it prints properly, because the more ripply and bumpy it is, I found it doesn't print very well, and it works best when there's a flat surface to adhere to the base of the printer. You have to get good contact with the printer, otherwise the print comes loose and then you've got no print. There's a ton of videos explaining how 3D printing works, but the base principle is that you've got this plate that moves and a print head that moves in the opposite direction, and therefore you can get to every space. And then you've also got another axis that moves up and down. The plastic that gets extruded in the beginning has to stick to the plate, and as the plate moves around, this is going this way, this is going this way. As the plate moves around, the attached print must adhere to the plate, otherwise it's not printable. Anyway, there's going to be a quick time lapse of me taking the rough scan and creating it into a fully finished rendered model ready for printing. So now I've got the digital rendering in 3 parts. The reason it's divided into 3 is the build plate is only 30 centimeters by 30 centimeters, and the final print I need to be about 50 centimeters by 50 centimeters. So it's not possible on the size of the build plate that I've got, and although this is an incredibly large printer for the cost price, it's not quite big enough to do what I want. Long story short, it's cut into 3 pieces, and then I will join them up post-print. Well, there we go, job done. So we've scanned our piece, we've made it digitally, we've printed it, and now we've got to mount it onto the wall. I want to put it onto a kind of elegant, nice metal rimmed frame. So I'm going to make 3 triangles out of wood and then kind of wrap them in a metal sheath, and then attach the surfaces to the sheath. First, we'll make the frames. Now the frames are made, we've got to mount the print to the frames. Once the print is mounted, we'll then get to the experimental process. So just 2 steps left in the process now. I've got to unify the surfaces. They've got to become one single surface. So I'm gonna attach string to it and wrap it in wire and whatever. I'm just gonna kind of organically produce and see what's necessary and what isn't, and make a judgment as I work. And now you can see that the pieces have this unified surface. All that's left to do now is the painting, and that can take several months. So I'm gonna leave this project for now. I hope that you enjoyed seeing the process from start to finish a bit more, and seeing an overall picture of what it is that I'm doing with the 3D printing. I'll revisit the project in a couple of months when I finish painting, because I want to keep that really nice metal. I'm basically going to seal it in a plastic wrap so that there's no paint on there. So once there is several 30-40 layers of paint on the surface, I will strip back the protective layer on the metal and reveal the final finish. So we'll revisit that in a couple of months when the painting process is complete. So, we'll see you next week.